Hey, what's up you guys? In this tutorial we're gonna work on this stool in 3ds Max and Substance Painters. Please like this video and consider sharing it around if you will. Okay, in order to create the stool we're gonna work on right now, we're gonna have to actually start with a plane and or a tube, because some of the geometry that is going to be created on the side is going to be difficult to deal with unless we start with it, because probably starting with the difficult things first is going to actually make the process of modeling easier for the other parts. So creating this arc here is going to be help us to actually make things easier for us in the common pieces. And as you can see here, we're going to extrude all these edges, as you can see here. So keep holding shift and move them around in order to actually extrude them and create these extra polygons and edges. Also make sure that everything is going to be straight, and we're going to have to actually do the same thing from this side, and from the left, from the top, and from the right as well. We don't have to be super accurate though, because later we're going to apply the symmetry modifier, and we're going to make sure that everything is symmetrical and looking nice and everything else. So we're going to do the same thing from the top. We're going to actually use the alignment tools in order to get everything aligned perfectly. We're going to align on the y-axis or the z-axis, depending on from which viewport you created your piece. And as you can see here, we're going to actually do the same thing, but it's going to be a little bit difficult on, actually different, not difficult, on from the left side, because we have an arrow looking shape right here, and we're going to make sure that some of the extra geometry here that we don't need is going to be removed, because it's not really necessary to keep it. So control backspace to get rid of that. Okay, so we're going to continue here, and we're going to make sure that we're going to close that with an arrow looking shape, as you can see here, and we're going to move some of these vertices around in order to get what we are going for. So also we're going to move these vertices around if you think that is going to be a good idea, because sometimes we like to have things look organized and stuff. Okay, when we apply the symmetry modifier, you can see that you will see that whatever we are creating here is kind of working, and we're going to make sure also we're going to make sure that the alignment is going fine for us. And also if you see some weird results where the two parts are going to be meeting each other, it means that there is probably a problem with here. I don't know why I'm not doing that, but I was thinking about something actually. I didn't actually. I was not paying attention. If you face a problem like this, the only solution for this, or the fastest one, is gonna be to change the welding value, which is gonna be solving your problem real quick. So yeah, I kind of this is not the way to do it. By the way, I'm gonna be honest with you. This is kind of something really ridiculous. So I went back actually, and I increased the welding value, or decreased it in the symmetry modifier, and this should do it. Okay, for now it is time actually to start probably duplicating this piece here, because we need 4 sides, and we're gonna rotate about 90 degrees. Actually, it's gonna be 90 degrees, not about 90 degrees, because we want to be accurate here. And we want to actually move these parts around, and we want to be accurate actually. So we want these vertices to be aligned, so we're going to use the alignment tool S from the keyboard in order to actually activate the snap tool, and we want to snap all these vertices to actually to allow ourselves to have a good accurate alignment right there. So we're gonna do the same thing for the two pieces here, and we're gonna make sure that everything is gonna work just fine. Okay, so we're gonna align also or snap some of the vertices to the very corners. As you can see, sometimes it doesn't work as we want it to, but with some adjustments here, probably this is gonna work just fine. Okay, so all right, there is something terrible going on here because somehow I didn't see that I accidentally moved some of these vertices, so we're gonna have to do it again. So rotate these about 90 degrees as copies, and this work should work real quickly and is gonna be just fine. Also, we want to actually rotate or flip these pieces here because they are actually facing in the wrong direction, and in order to do this you can rotate 90 degrees 180 degrees, or just use the mirror tool in order to mirror them to the other side, and this should work just fine. Also, we want actually to before we activate the shell modifier, I think it's gonna be a better idea if we actually make sure that all these pieces are gonna be attached together, and all the vertices are gonna be welded together. And okay, so we're gonna select all the vertices, as you can see, or we're gonna select the vertices in the corners, and what we will do is we'll actually, as you can see, even with the snap tool, there is some space being left there, and when we apply the the weld tool right there, everything should be welded together, and the duplicated vertices should go away, and we're gonna be left with something unified and welded very well. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing in the center here. Probably is gonna be a good idea as well, and we're gonna make sure that we are not selecting the vertices that are not gonna be in the very center, because this will be unhealthy for our progress, and this will mess things up. Okay, so we're gonna apply the weld process right there in the center, and we should be able to get something nice. Okay, after that we're gonna extrude extrude all the polygons we have in order to get something that looks like this. Probably also we want to extrude the edges from the inside, because probably because we want to cover the inner side, and there is one thing we want to do, which is going to be, we want to detach that thing right there, and we want to flip it actually, because we don't want the we don't want the normals to be facing the wrong direction. And right now we can apply a material, and we're going to change the color in order to have something that we can work with easily. Okay, so after that we're going to convert this one to editable poly, and as you can see, some of the pieces are inside each other, and this might not be the best way to make things easy, but I think this is going to be a good approach in order to prevent things from being overcomplicated. So for now we're going to actually extrude some of the edges, keep holding shift in order to do this, and we're going to actually cap that opening right there, cap that gap. And also we have to actually connect all the vertices together. So an easier way to do this is actually to bridge all the edges instead of closing that gap. So as you can see, if you select all the edges from each side and create a bridge, is going to be easier. Also here we're going to create some connections between the edges in order to actually close or create connections between those vertices. We could we could have used the cut tool, but I think this way is gonna be easier because we're gonna have an easy time welding all the vertices together, and this will allow us to have everything done for us or working for us the right way. Also, it seems like this is it seems like we have a lot of vertices here, and you are right about it. But the thing is, this is going to be part of the high poly model, so we don't have to worry about that too much. And the good news is, in the low poly model, we can get rid of all these without any problems whatsoever. Okay, so this box we are creating here is gonna be the thing that we can see, we are gonna be seeing. So anything underneath it is not gonna be visible. Also, we are gonna be trying to create a smooth surface right there until we'll be able to close it in the very top. Okay, so for now we're going to probably change the height a little bit because it seemed like it is too short or something. We can actually, this is also subject to change. We can change it anytime we want, and it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Okay, so we'll try now to create some pins that are gonna be located on the sides. This should be very easy. We're going to actually use a sphere, and obviously we're not gonna use all the sphere because we need only a hemisphere. So we're gonna actually use a 0.5 value, and we're going to make that hemisphere look like it is flat, which is exactly what we need. Also, we're gonna make it a little bit bigger than it is because we want it to be visible from a distance. Okay, so after converting it to editable poly, we will start creating some instances that are gonna be going all around. So we're gonna go something like that, and the good thing about creating instances is we can change all the pieces that were copied as instances any point in a given moment or in a given time, because this will allow us to actually have remote control over all the other pieces, as I said, at any given moment, which is a cool thing. We don't have to worry about everything, as you see me doing here. As I change the size of one piece, the others are going to be changing automatically because they are linked together, which is a huge thing when we deal with complicated models with so many things that are copied and stuff. Okay, for now we're going to create a star that is going to be located in the center, and it shouldn't be that complicated. So we're going to need 4 sides or 4 heads for this star or whatever, and we're going to convert it to editable poly, and after that we're going to make sure that we're going to give it some thickness. We can extrude it or we can give it the shell modifier. It doesn't really matter, so it is absolutely up to you. Also, we want the sides to be a little bit wide. We don't want them to be so sharp, for practical reason and for an artistic reason. So probably this is gonna look better, and it's gonna be easier to work with, especially for adding support edges and stuff. So we're gonna make sure that this looks nice from a distance, and we're gonna make sure also that the size is gonna be good enough, and the proportion also with that surface. What are we gonna do right now is going to be creating some extra surface there's gonna be actually extruded, and we want it to be pronounced, and we want it to be actually visible from a distance. We don't have to overdo it, by the way. We just need few millimeters or something like that, and I think this detail here is going to be adding a lot, especially when we look at this tool from a distance, because this is going to be a game prop, and probably the very complicated details are not going to be visible from a distance, because this is something that you're not going to be interacting with from a very close distance. So we're going to make sure that we're going to create things that are gonna be actually kind of letting you notice some of the interesting things about it, even when you don't we don't have a close look at this prop. Okay, so right now we are trying to make sure that this looks smooth and stuff, and we're gonna make sure that we're gonna add some also minor details, which is gonna be extruding some of the polygons here. Probably you're gonna go and do this like this. So we're gonna select some of these polygons, we're going to extrude them by local normal. Probably it's a good idea to extrude it negatively. Also, we can extrude it positively to the outside, which is gonna be working as well. And in order to do this properly, I think extruding the inverse is gonna be a good idea, because sometimes when we extrude surfaces to the inside, we'll have to deal with some stuff that actually consumes some time. So dealing with it this way is gonna be better for us. Okay, so after we do that, probably we're going to copy some of these pieces all over the place, because we don't have to create them all over again. By the way, this is going to be wasted time. That's why we are doing 3D in the first place, because it's procedural, and we can duplicate stuff. We can actually use stuff that we used before. It is magical, actually. It's way it has way more advantages when it comes to actually creating compared to creating in 2D, or I mean in 2D, not in basically creating on a computer is gonna be way better than creating in on paper, in terms of productivity and speed and flexibility as well. By the way, you can't do Control-Z when you're working with a pencil and paper. It doesn't exist. When you screw up, you are done. On a computer, you can go back and fix your problems and your errors, which is a cool thing. Okay, right now we are working on some of the pieces, as you can see here in the corner, and this is gonna be also a cool thing to do, and I think this is gonna be a nice addition to what we've been working on. I personally think that the more time you spend on creating details, the more your model is gonna look, the more it's gonna look better, and I think the fruit of your labor are gonna be actually when you get to the details. And if you actually create the hard things and the kind of the building blocks of your model, and then when you actually reach a point when you are going to be able to add the minor details, you stop. I think you are kind of leaving a lot on the table, and you're not going to be actually reaching the most, or the kind of the full potential of what your prop can look like. The details are the most important thing, and sometimes when you add details, when someone looks at it, he's gonna be appreciating the art and stuff, even though he didn't, or she didn't realize what you did. And if someone doesn't understand what you did, what you have done in order to create that, he still appreciates the effort and the complicated stuff and the amazing art. But if you don't create a detail, if you don't create these details, it's not gonna look as good, and it's gonna feel like something is missing, or the art is not professional or something like that. So I think creating the incredible details is gonna pay dividends if you actually spend time to create them. And I believe, and I'm a firm believer that you don't have to have kind of incredible skills in order to create something amazing. You just need to make things look complicated. Kind of the complicated stuff are kind of small things put together, and when you look at them, kind of it's gonna shock you, and it's gonna make you impressed. When in fact it's just simple stuff put together. Like, let's just say a robot from a Transformers movie is gonna look amazing and stuff, but when you break it down, it's just small pieces that a beginner can create, just put together in a professional way. I'm talking about the modeling aspect, of course, because texturing and shading and stuff, and rigging and animation is gonna be a different level of creation, because this is gonna be the next level probably for you. But in terms of modeling, it's gonna be something that is not gonna be impressing if you break it down. Okay, for now we're going to add probably some details in the in the bottom, and I think we're going to add a piece of wood probably to connect the legs, something that looks like this. And I think the something is messed up here, because it seems like these two loops here have different height, which is probably weird. I don't know why this is going on, but anyways, we fixed that, and for now we're going to actually detach this piece and copy it all over the place, because I don't want it to be attached to the other pieces. So as you can see, we'll try to bring everything to its original shape, or its original state, and remove these edges that we don't really need. And this one here is going to be duplicated 3 times. We're going to rotate it and copy it, so keep holding shift and rotate it 90 degrees as instance about 3 times. Okay, for now we're gonna create some layers for the low poly and for the high poly. So in order to do this, you're gonna select all the pieces we created, and we're gonna actually create a layer for the high poly. You're gonna name it whatever you want, like stool underscore HP, and we're gonna copy that layer, and we're gonna give it another name like stool underscore LP, and we're gonna right now work on the high poly. So in order to do this, we're going to, first of all, we're going to actually add what we call support edges. And these support edges are going to help us to keep everything in place, because we're going to apply a turbo smooth modifier, which is going to smooth everything out and is going to make everything look soft and smooth. So actually there are certain areas that we don't want to actually be smoothed out, and we want them to still look solid and hard edge, and this is the way to do it. So support edges are going to be the method that we need in order to make sure that certain areas are going to be looking solid and certain areas are going to be looking smooth and stuff. Okay, certain pieces here or certain areas are gonna be a little bit interesting because we're gonna have to do some manual work and some manual adjustments. So we're gonna deal with the most or the easiest stuff, which are gonna be straightforward, and later we're gonna deal with the things that are gonna be interesting, like over here we're gonna add two segments probably. Okay, it seems like we have to select certain areas here and apply that, and we'll see. Okay, so actually the one side was necessary and the other was just a tool in order to make sure that the one that we need is going to be pushed in into the right corner. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing over here, and we're going to control backspace to remove the other one that we don't need. Okay, this one here is going to be a little bit interesting because as you can see here, we have to be very, we have to actually use our manual skills here. And we're going to use the cut tool in order to make sure that we're going to follow these lines and these edges in a nice way that is going to allow them to look smooth and very well supported in the same time. Actually, we could have used other methods like using inset in order to do that, but probably using this way is gonna be a little bit easier, and it's gonna actually depend on less cleaning later. Okay, it's totally screwed up when we apply the Turbo Smooth modifier, so it seems like we have to do more support, especially in these corners. Now it seems a little bit more supported, and it's looking more solid. So so we're gonna have to duplicate or replicate what we've done here, and we're gonna continue our progress. So yeah. We're gonna have to, actually what we're doing here is we're gonna save some time by selecting everything, the similar areas, and we're gonna support them, as you can see. And I have done the rest of the pieces, and this is the result that you can see here. We're gonna do the same thing over here because it's something that is gonna be very similar. So we're gonna need two edges. We're gonna push them apart, one to the bottom and one to the upper area, and yeah, this is looking nice so far. Also, it seems like we forgot to support certain areas, and you're gonna pay close attention to certain areas, because if you see some black distortions, it probably means that you did a bad job. So we're gonna go back and fix those issues if they exist. Also, when it comes to this piece here, it's gonna be a straightforward process. You're gonna add support edges where you see that there is a need for that, and if you do it properly, you should get something very beautiful. Okay. That's nice. Also, here we're gonna do something similar, so we're gonna make sure that those corners are gonna be supported nicely. Okay, this is looking very nice for now, and I think we've done a good job modeling this tool. And the last thing probably is going to be duplicating these pins here. And since this is gonna be part of the high poly only, we don't have to worry about being part of the low poly, so we don't have to involve it in that layer in the first place. So we're gonna do the same thing here. We're going to put actually a row of these pins on each side. I'm gonna have to duplicate it all over on the other sides as well, which is gonna look very nice. Okay, now we're gonna take care of the process of creating the low poly. So things are gonna be straightforward here. We're gonna get rid of all the polygons that are gonna be not necessary. Here we're gonna collapse all these to one point, as you can see here. Also, all those vertices are not gonna be necessary as well. So what we'll do is we're gonna make sure that we're gonna target weld these, or whatever method you want to use in order to get rid of those extra edges and stuff, because they're not necessary. They're not actually adding anything to the silhouette of the model. So this process can be a little bit time consuming. You just have to be a little bit patient, and I sometimes find it fun to work with because I like actually doing this stuff, because it's like a game or something. Just try to reduce the number of polygons and try to actually target weld all the vertices, remove all the edges that are gonna be actually not necessary, and you're gonna end up with the least amount of polygons or edges possible, which is gonna be sometimes fun to do. Not always. Sometimes it's gonna be tedious. Sometimes you're not gonna be wanting to do it, but you're gonna have to do it anyways. And over time, you're gonna find smart ways of doing these things to make the amount of work that you need to do less and less over time. If it's not necessary, then you're gonna get rid of that. Okay, on the high poly, it seemed like we had kind of hundreds of vertices, but when it comes to the low poly, as you can see, there are very few. Also here we're gonna have the same thing, so we're gonna get rid of most of these sections where we're gonna have some extruded areas and some carved surfaces. We will be fine after that, because these details are gonna be brought back using the normal maps that we're gonna bake in Substance Painter. Also, we want to delete some of the polygons that are going to be on the inside, because they're not gonna be seen anyways, and keeping them is gonna be probably a bad idea because they're not doing anything. After all, we ended up with something that looks very flight like this, which is sometimes ironic. You're gonna realize that all those vertices and details were not necessary for the low poly model after all. Okay, so here we're going to do the same thing, by the way, except that probably we're gonna keep some of the edges because this piece here is gonna be a little bit curved, and this is a problem with curved and cylindrical and spherical surfaces, because you're gonna have to keep the kind of the bent shape, because somehow you need to follow the low poly needs to follow the silhouette of the high poly, and if it's not gonna be a flat surface, you need more polygons, and you need more edges and vertices in order to do that. Okay, control backspace to remove all these edges because they are absolutely not necessary. Okay, it seems like this is going to be our low poly model, and for now what we will do is we will start UV unwrapping it. So we're gonna apply the unwrap UVW modifier, and some things here are gonna be unwrapped straightforward, kind of directly in a straightforward manner, and certain parts are gonna be a little bit interesting to work with. So this one here, for example, we're gonna just make it planar directly, and we're gonna be just fine. And the only thing we have to do is we cut open the edges in order to make it relaxed a little bit more. If you don't want to do this, you're gonna be just fine as well, by the way. And when we unwrap it, we're gonna make sure that we're gonna put it aside in order to actually create some room for the other pieces. Okay, we're gonna apply the checker texture, and you're gonna make sure as well that there are no distortions, there are no errors when you look at the checker texture, because it is a strong indicator. If you pay close attention, if you see some distortions in your checker texture, it means that there is some problem or something wrong with the process of UV unwrapping that you worked on. If the checker texture seems nice and correct and everything else, it means you've done a good job. So for this piece here, it's gonna be also a straightforward one, except that we have to do some stitching and we have to organize some of these pieces because they are scattered and thrown all over the place. And we're gonna try to pick the pieces or the UV elements that seem like they are done correctly, and the others we have to take care of in a way that is gonna be nice and beautiful. Okay, so some of these pieces kind of look finished, and so we're gonna extract them and put them aside. The others need to be stitched and organized a little bit more. Okay, Shift S from the keyboard or just right click on the edges in order to perform the stitch selecting process. And you're gonna make sure that you're not gonna stitch certain pieces together because they are not supposed to be together, because we need to respect some rules of UV unwrapping, which is gonna be you're gonna break the UVs when you have a 90-degree angle, because this is not gonna be that good for the process of creating maps in Substance Painter, especially the normal map. Is gonna give us some weird results if we do that. Okay, after you organize your pieces and you put them together, you're gonna have to apply the checker texture and match it with the previous piece, which is gonna be important because we're gonna have some proper scale and proportion between all the pieces when it comes to size. Also, we're gonna have to deal with this piece here, which is gonna be very simple. So we're gonna apply a normal box unwrapping method, and I think this is gonna be an easy one, and it's just all about organizing pieces and putting them aside. This is what we're gonna have to do for the most part. Okay, for this piece here, also it's gonna be very easy, and we're gonna do the same thing we've done for the last piece. After we are done, since these are going to be instances, it should actually make sense that they are going to be unwrapped similarly because they are instances after all. For this one, it's not going to be that difficult because it is something straightforward like the other pieces. We're going to use box unwrapping as well, and it's all about organizing the pieces that we unwrapped. Also for these pieces, it's gonna be very straightforward, so very simple. Just put it aside and it should be just fine. Make sure also the proportion is correct. So when we're done with that, we're gonna convert one piece to edible poly, and what we'll do is we will attach all the pieces together. So after that, the goal is to create what we call the UV template. So the UV template is a really important thing that we need to create, because we're gonna use it for texturing, for creating maps and baking maps in Substance Painter. We're gonna use it also for if we want to add certain stuff in Photoshop. It's going to be a great thing to create, and a necessary one. So after we do that, we're going to bring the unwrap UVW modifier, and we're going to open the UV editor in order to make sure that all the pieces are going to be collected or put together in what we call the UV template. This process is gonna be straightforward. There's nothing complicated about it. It's gonna be very easy. Just put all these pieces together in that rectangle. Also, there are gonna be some overlapping UVs. So what you're gonna do is just try to separate them, and this is what I'm gonna do. Why? Because when creating textures, I don't want our kind of corners and duplicated pieces to look very similar, because it's unnatural, it is unrealistic, and I don't like it. So this is gonna be very important. In order to start putting these pieces inside the UV template, or to create the UV template without any complications, you better start with the biggest pieces. And the smaller pieces are going to be something easy to deal with, because they have more flexibility and they can actually use some empty space that we didn't use before, which is going to be something that we have to do anyways. And if you see that the space you've used is going to be actually not that good, and it seems like you have some empty spaces, you're gonna change how the UV template looks. For now, we're going to actually start renaming our objects or our pieces. In order to do this, we're gonna use the name the tool that is called Rename Objects. And we're gonna bring our high poly and our low poly layers, and we're gonna start adding some names. Of course, we're gonna use a name, and we're gonna use a suffix. This suffix is gonna be something like underscore LP or underscore low poly, and on the other hand, we're gonna name the high poly something underscore HP underscore high poly underscore high. Use whatever name you want, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is just make sure that the names are going to be similar when it comes to the high poly and the low poly, and the difference is going to be for the underscore something that is going to be indicating whether actually this one is going to be high poly or low poly. Also, you're going to use the same suffix when we go to Substance Painter, because this is going to allow Substance Painter to actually know which one is going to be high poly and which one is going to be low poly, and it's going to allow it to isolate these pieces and bake them properly. Actually, this is a revolutionary method of baking that we use in Substance Painter, because earlier, before that, it was actually a tedious task, and you're gonna have to use a process that we call the exploded bake, which is gonna be basically, imagine that if your model actually exploded and all the pieces are kind of separated in the air. And this is what actually Substance Painter does, but without separating the pieces, because it's gonna actually separate it figuratively, not literally. Somehow it does that, but we don't have to worry about it because we have a method to tell which pieces are gonna be baked together and which pieces are gonna be separate, kind of not related together. And it seems like this process is something that is not going to take a long time, and the most important thing here is to pay very close attention. You don't or you can't make mistakes here, because if you make a mistake, if you make a tiny little mistake, this is like math, you can't make mistakes. If you make a tiny mistake, the bake is gonna be kind of not perfect. You're gonna have some errors, at least at some part, because if you make a mistake, then Substance Painter is not gonna tell if this is gonna be low poly or high poly, or these pieces are gonna be related and stuff. You're gonna have to be extremely accurate. There's no room for error. You can actually double check or triple check. Sometimes I find errors, sometimes I forget to rename some of these pieces, sometimes I just kind of accidentally do something unexpected. So for now we are in Substance Painter, and we will import the low poly model that we exported in 3ds Max. So also, in order to do the bake, we're going to import the high poly. We're going to do a test bake right now, and we're going to enter the suffixes and the suffix and of the high poly and low poly, and when we're gonna do a quick bake, if that works, we're gonna do the real bake with anti-aliasing, and we're gonna involve all the maps we need, like the ID, the normal, the ambient occlusion, curvature, position, thickness. We're gonna use all of these, and when we are done, we're gonna make sure that we double checked everything, and we're gonna start baking. This will take a couple, actually not a couple hours, something like an hour or 40 minutes or something. When you're done, we should see something that looks like this. And we're gonna start adding some materials right now. Probably we're gonna start off with some smart materials, like this wood material here, and we're gonna select only the areas that we need. They're gonna be wooden, or they're gonna be made of wood. We'll try this smart material instead. Probably this is gonna work better. I think this is going to be working better. Also, we are going to adjust some of its parameters, I guess. Also, this texture or this smart material as well is going to be used for another purpose or for a different part. So because there are going to be some differences, even though they're going to be both of them are going to be wood, there are going to be some differences that we need to respect. So for example, here you can rotate and change the UV scale and change the amount of these details and these fibers and stuff. So it is completely up to you. You can change it however you want. It doesn't really matter. The most important thing that matters is you're gonna get something that you're happy with. Okay, this wood material here, smart material, is going to be used in order to take care of these small pieces. And by the way, in order to find these smart materials, you're gonna go to Substance Share website, and you're gonna download them and put them in. Go to your Substance Painter folders in the installation directory, and you're gonna put them inside the shelf of materials, and you're gonna close the Substance Painter software, reload it, and you're gonna be able to find them in the smart materials section. And you're gonna do this over and over when we need certain materials or certain masks or whatever. For now, we are working on this material here, and it seems like we gonna have to change some parameters and some colors. Also, we need a material here for the seat, which is gonna be fabric. We're gonna change the UV scale here. We want it to be a little bit smaller and detailed. Also, when it comes to probably that star, it's gonna be bronze or something, because I want it to be noticeable when you look at it from a distance. Okay, so for now we're going to add a fill layer. This fill layer probably is gonna be important for certain things, such as taking care of these pins. Anyways, so we are now in Photoshop, and what we will do is we will use the UV template we exported from 3ds Max, and we're gonna actually use this mask here, which is gonna be a black and white layer. And if you are one of my Patreons, you should find it on Patreon. You're gonna find all the layers and all the alphas I used. And when you export the mask and bring it to Substance Painter, you should be able to see this taking place. So I didn't do a lot of explaining here because somehow I didn't. But anyways, you're gonna change the height, and you're gonna change the color of this fill layer, because we want these ornaments and these flowers or whatever to pop out and to be noticeable from a distance, and we want them to be pronounced. Also, we're gonna actually add another mask, which is gonna be for the ornaments for the wood. So these are gonna be the designs I used, and you're gonna make sure that you're gonna put them in the right place. You're gonna actually put them also in the corners of the seat or the stool, and you're gonna make them black and white, and you're gonna export it to Substance Painter. Okay, so when you bring it, you're going just to create another fill layer, and you're gonna call it whatever you want. Just make sure that you're gonna add a black mask, add a fill, and then you're going to actually put it in the right section, drop it right there, and boom, this is what you should be able to see. Such a cool result, right? And you're gonna change the color, probably something darker, and also you're going to change the height, which makes it pop out a little bit even better, and it's gonna make it look more realistic. So If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share this video if you found it useful. Probably a lot of people are gonna be happy if they found it, probably, I think. And consider becoming a Patreon, because this really helps you and helps me. So help me help you, and because you're gonna find all the files, all the alphas, and the low poly model, and you're gonna have early access to my tutorials.